We had our first frost yesterday. As a gardener, you anticipate first frost all season. It's always a date on your mind, but somehow it still caught me off guard. It seemed too soon. So I am making cozy things today. It suddenly flipped for me that that season where we're spending most of our time outside is coming to an end, and the season of cozying up and eating some comfort foods and just enjoying indoor time has arrived. So today we're making some of my fall favorites. We're gonna make some dried apple rings. My kids have been tearing through these. We'll make them in the dehydrator, but you can also make them in the ovens. We'll also make some salted caramel sauce, which is good on just about everything, an apple crumble, and some Zuppa Toscana, a sausage, potato, and kale soup. All things cozy. Let's get started. So let me show you what I'm doing here with these apples. I've got this apple corer, and I'm just sending it straight down the middle to remove that core. Sometimes if the apple is irregular in shape, it takes me 2 passes to get everything, but that's a one shot. And then I'm just slicing as thinly as I can. The tops and bottoms that have all that skin on them don't really make for great apple rings. I set those aside and we just eat them as a snack. They'll actually be really good dipped in that caramel sauce that we're gonna make after this. And I'm just slicing as thinly as possible. I love that this is a recipe that doesn't require peeling apples. Peeling things just makes me impatient. We will peel apples for the apple crumble, but for this one, things come together pretty quickly because it doesn't take time to peel. I will link this little device down below for you. It's very affordable and I've found it really useful. This is my 3rd year using it. I'm just gonna put these rings straight onto the trays as they are finished. They're not all exactly the same thickness, and that's okay. Some will get crispier than others. This is a good job for a mandolin if you have one. I think I've said that, I don't know, in 5 or 6 videos now, which is probably a sign that I should buy one. I don't like accumulating a lot of kitchen gear because I just get overwhelmed by having a lot of stuff. But a mandolin seems worth it. If you have a mandolin and you love it, let me know. Any type of apple will work for this. Oops. I'm using Cortland apples. These are our favorite for applesauce. I have a big applesauce day coming up with my family, with my siblings and my parents. And we'll use all Cortland apples. They have this extra white flesh, which is really distinct looking to me, but the flavor is just a little tart, a little sweet. They're not my favorite apples for eating fresh. They're not as crisp as I like for a fresh apple, but I really like them for baking. You can use whatever apple you like though. So I've filled up all 6 of my dehydrator trays. I just went back and counted my apple cores. So if you're curious, that was 9 apples. It's amazing when you dehydrate something, you know, it becomes light and small. 9 apples seems like a decent amount of apples, but I know that my kids will be able to eat this in a day or 2. So I'm gonna sprinkle this with cinnamon and get these in the dehydrator. I'm gonna set my dehydrator to its highest temp. For me, that's 165. And then I'm gonna run this for 7 hours and check on them. You can make chewy dried apple rings or crispy. Crispy takes more time. I like the crispy. So I'm gonna start with 7 hours. Because I don't uniformly cut things super thin, it might actually take longer than that. If you're making yours in the oven, set your oven for 225 Fahrenheit and set the timer for 3 hours. Then flip them over and do 3 more hours on the other side, and then you can check to see if you like how done it is. This is gonna make my kitchen smell so good while I'm cooking and baking today. Everything will smell apple cinnamon. Moving on to the salted caramel. Salted caramel is a tricky beast. Caramel is just temperamental, and I've definitely had it go wrong before. But for me, this particular recipe, if I follow it to a T, just has been working every time. I've made this for years, and it's pretty reliable. So it's just 4 simple ingredients: sugar, heavy whipping cream, butter, and vanilla. The heavy whipping cream and the butter are supposed to be at room temp. I never can plan ahead far enough to make that happen, so I just pop it into the microwave. So this is half a cup of heavy whipping cream, and I'm just gonna put it in the microwave for a few seconds. Microwaving butter to soften it can be tricky because you can quickly melt the outside while the inside stays cold. So I'm just gonna cut this into pads and microwave them very briefly, and that should soften everything. That was 15 seconds. It's soft, it's just right. I just realized that I misspoke. I'm sorry, that 4th ingredient is not vanilla, it's salt. I was working from memory, which I shouldn't do because I haven't made this in a little while. So I've had other caramel recipes that call for vanilla. That is not the 4th ingredient here. It's a salted caramel. We'll need this. All right, now we're finally ready to get started. So I've got a cup of sugar, and I'm putting on medium heat. The first time that I made this, it felt so wrong to be heating sugar in a pan without any liquid. I'd never done that before, and it just didn't seem like it could possibly work, but it does. If you keep stirring and the heat isn't too high, it starts to liquefy. You can see it's starting to liquefy around the bottoms and edges of the pan. It's getting liquid and things are clumping together and browning a bit. A couple more minutes and it'll be all liquid. It's liquefied, but there's still a few sugar clumps in there. I want to keep going until the last of those clumps disappears, so it's all smooth. It's perfectly smooth and liquid now. In goes the butter. And everything's going to bubble, which is okay. At this point, I'm going to switch over to a whisk. It's possible at this point for things to split. The butter kind of separates from the sugar. If that happens, it's time to take it off the heat and whisk them to combine, because it means things are getting too hot. Everything's fully combined, so I'm going to slowly add in the cream. And because it's cold and this is hot, it's going to bubble. Well, it's not cold, it's room temp. Sorry, because it's colder. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that color. That is so pretty. Everything's combined. I'm setting a timer for 1 minute. And for 1 minute, I'm not gonna stir. I'm just gonna let it gently bubble. Finally, I'm adding in the salt. It should be a teaspoon of salt, but I used salted butter, which you're not supposed to use. It's just what I had. So I'm gonna start with a ½ teaspoon. I'll taste it and see if it seems like it needs more. Caramel is just pretty. And when you've burnt batches and had batches split before, it's just extra satisfying to get it right sometimes. It's super hot, but I don't want to wait. I'm just going to try a little bit. That's really good. ½ teaspoon of salt was the right call for me. I can't say that ½ teaspoon of salt is always going to be the right call if you're using salted butter, because there's a lot of variety in how much salt goes into salted butter. But if you're using Kerrygold salted butter, I think that was just right. It's going to be fun to have this on hand for a bit. We drizzle it over ice cream. Sometimes I let the kids dip their apples in it. Depends on how treaty we're feeling. But today, the reason I made this is because I want to drizzle it over an apple crumble and just kind of be a little extra with my apple crumble. So that's next in the lineup. I'm gonna start peeling some apples. For the apple crisp, I'm using Granny Smith apples. And it is a crisp, I kept calling it a crumble. I like a tart apple with an apple dessert. I like that tart versus sweet. So I'm just going through with a vegetable peeler. I really don't like peeling apples with a knife. For me, this is the most comfortable, but I know some of you probably prefer a knife. So I've got 4 peeled apples. I'm going to use my slicer to get things started, and then I'll slice them into smaller, thinner pieces. Slicing each of these in half gets me to a good consistent thickness. This is how I prep apples for apple pie too. Apples are prepped. I'm moving on to the topping. I'm making a lot of substitutions in this recipe, so I'll be sure to link it down below. You don't have to use all the substitutions I am. It's also called a gluten-free recipe, and it calls for gluten-free flour. Wow, this is tough. But you can definitely make this with regular flour. It's not designed exclusively to be gluten-free. So if that's not your thing, use regular flour, it'll be good. I'm starting with King Arthur's Measure for Measure flour. That's my go-to, or one of my go-tos. I also use a lot of oat flour. So half a cup of flour for the crumble, half a cup of oats. We've been tearing through oats lately. I'm gonna add those to our Azure order. Let's see, half a cup of light brown sugar. I'm using maple sugar as a substitute, but light brown sugar is great. I just feel a little better on this maple sugar. I get this from Azure. It's so pretty and it just gives a nice maple flavor to things. Then half a teaspoon baking powder. Calls for an 1/8 teaspoon salt. I don't even have an 1/8 teaspoon measure. I think that's what you call a pinch. Finally, a 1/3 cup butter. I'm going to swap in ghee, but butter's great too. I like that ghee is always soft. Cold butter doesn't work well for a crumble. It needs to be warmed up, but this is just right. I'm mostly using it to avoid dairy though. I know I just made something with heavy cream in it, but I do actually try to avoid dairy lately. And ghee is delicious. It doesn't feel like a sacrifice. So all of this gets combined into a sort of crumb. And that'll go into the fridge so it can firm up. That ghee is soft. It'll firm up while we make the filling. That texture is great. It's a nice crumble. It's going into the fridge. Last step, I'm making the filling. So I've got 4 cups of apples. I cut up a little more than I needed. 3 apples might have worked for this. That's okay. They'll just be snacks, more apple snacks for us. Shoot, I was accidentally looking at the topping amounts. This should not have been a 1/2 cup of flour. That should have been 2 tablespoons. Oh, there's no way to properly edit this out because you are going to see flour all over these apples. So I'm just gonna be real with you and tell you that that happened. I'm thinking the amount that stuck to the apples is the 2 tablespoons. I'll shake a little off there. Oh, guys. Seems to be happening to me more often lately. All right, it's not tragic. Moving on, so that was going to be 2 tablespoons of flour, 3 tablespoons of melted butter. I'm using melted ghee. Melted butter is great too. A tablespoon of lemon juice. 3 tablespoons milk. I'm using almond milk, but I recommend whole milk. The more fat you have in your milk, the better your desserts and dishes are going to taste. A teaspoon vanilla. I am getting low on my vanilla, and I don't like to have that sneak up on me because it takes a couple months to make more. You can see down to the last of that, but this has lasted me, I don't know, almost half a year, I think. It's definitely worth it to make your own if you're interested in that. And actually, I can link the video above where I made this if you're curious. 1/4 cup light brown sugar. I'm using that maple sugar again. 1/2 teaspoon ground cinnamon. And again, an 1/8 teaspoon salt, which I am going to interpret as a pinch. Let's give this a stir. Just want each apple coated in all of this goodness. Last recipe for the day, our last little bit of fall comfort food is Zuppa Toscana. So fall is the time for soups to me, or it's the time that we at least transition into soup season. They stick around for the winter. My son is home from school, so I've got a little assistant helping me peel potatoes. I'm ready to get started on the soup. This is a slow cooker recipe, but I'm just going to make it on the stove top. It's too late in the day for the slow cooker. I'm happy to simmer the soup. And I'm making a batch and a half. A single batch just isn't quite enough. If I'm gonna go to the trouble of making soup, I might as well make a decent amount. After my pantry tour video, so many of you shared with me that onions are not to be stored next to potatoes. So I have just moved my onions. Thanks for filling me in, guys. I've learned a lot, but I'm still just 2 years into this homesteading journey. So I really appreciate that there's an online community sharing their knowledge. It's pretty cool to me.
One potato is almost finished.
Excellent. Thank you, Bubba.
One potato finished.
Well
See?
done. So I'm just cutting bacon into my pan. I'd always rather cut bacon than put it on a cutting board and slice it up. This is just so quick and easy.
Look at this silly thing, Mama.
So I'm putting in 1.5 pounds of ground pork, 1.5 because I'm doing a batch and a half. The recipe calls for ground sausage. I've just stopped buying ground sausage. It always comes with like a bunch of corn syrup and MSG or whatever. I do ground pork, simple, and then I usually add some salt, onion powder, garlic powder, and fennel seeds to my ground pork to make it more sausagey, because sausage is usually heavily flavored. So that's what's been working for me, but of course you can just use ground sausage if you like. So I'm adding some salt, garlic powder, and I am including the recipe for this, but like I said, some of it's improvised because I do lots of swaps. The recipe's a good one, so if you follow the recipe, you won't be disappointed. And that's a bit of fennel seed just to make it more sausage-like. I've got some oregano and thyme from the garden. The recipe calls for oregano. I'm choosing to also add in the thyme. I love thyme, and I just think thyme belongs with things like sausage and potatoes. I think thyme might be my favorite seasoning. Next, I'm adding in some chicken broth. You can see, look at the bottom, look how gelatinous this is. This is the last chicken broth that I made using some feet I got from a local farmer. And it's just different. It's so gelatinous. I love it. Just about every week I roast a chicken and then make broth. It's been a good rhythm. Okay. Potatoes are going in. I'm gonna cover this and let it simmer. One of the last steps in making this soup is to add in some kale and let it wilt. I don't have any in the fridge right now, but I've got some out in the garden, so I'm gonna go grab that. Kale bouquet for the soup. The last step for this soup is to make a slurry to add some creaminess and thickness to the soup. So I'm using almond milk and cornstarch. I recommend heavy cream and flour. They get blended together and then are slowly worked into the soup, and as it simmers, it will start to thicken. With the soup ready, the last step to preparing our dinner is to finish off this dessert. So I'm just drizzling salted caramel over the apple crisp, and it didn't use up all the caramel, so the rest of it will go into a jar, and it stays good in the fridge for up to a month. This is the first time I've tried adding the caramel sauce to an apple crisp, and it was definitely a good idea. I will be doing that from now on. After 7 hours in the dehydrator, the apple rings had reached the chewy point. I decided to pack up a jar of these apple rings that were in the chewy stage, and then I left a few of them in the dehydrator. They dehydrated for 2 more hours and reached the crisp, more apple chip stage. One of the things I'm trying to learn lately is to be okay with slowing down. I like to get things done, and I'm often calculating how much time a thing takes. And so on a day like today, I spent a lot of hours in the kitchen. And are there faster ways that I could have put dinner on the table? Yes, of course. But I enjoyed making this soup, making this cobbler. I know that it's nourishing food. And this is just a special season that I get to be at home and take time to do these things. I'm grateful for this chance to slow down. If you find yourself wanting to slow down, I hope you get a chance to do that this week as well. Take care and be well.